So at some point you will need to share your map. You're going to need to be able to either put it into an email, you're going to need to be able to put it into a Word document, or a web page, story map, something like that. So one of the things we want to make sure we do is export it to a common format or a common way of dealing with images. And on the Share tab, under Export Map, all the way at the right, we're going to push it out. Now, tell it where you think it needs to go, and for myself, or for what you see on the screen, this is the same location as all my other goodies were for the spatial data, everything for this particular exercise. So I'm going to give it a name of, let's call it demographic male 2015 underscore 3 class. This is descriptive, right? So I understand it's about demographics, it's about males in 2015, and it has 3 classes. Right? So if I'm doing a study on women or female, and that was my focus, then I wouldn't have to look at this anymore. Save as type JPEG. This is a very common format. If you're very particular or you're very proficient at the different types of file or image formats, then by all means do whatever it is that you feel is appropriate. But for most, it's going to be JPEG. Select a resolution that's agreeable. 300 is more than enough to put into a Word document. It gets a little big in an email, but it's really up to you in the situation. So we'll select Export, give it a chance to go through its process. And there it goes. So let's verify that we have it somewhere, and we do. So here it is, demographic male 2015 3 class. So if we open it, then we see our wonderful map. Now this is a point of caution, and it's a point of understanding your reader. This may not be the most appropriate final result, right? Because we have this issue right here, all of this. How do we handle that? Because, let's see if I can write on it. Draw. So all of this right here is unused space. So is this, and if you're not worried about Puerto Rico, so is this. Again, it depends on your studies, right? So really, all of this becomes useless, and maybe this area here could be a separate cropped out image to lay with the other. So you might have to do some formatting, and here's why. How do I know? Let me give it another color here. How about a nice violet and a little bit smaller? How do I know what's going on here? These states are much smaller in size, and the symbology is really difficult to see. If maybe there's like one of them that's kind of spot in there. But if I'm able to somehow zoom into this area, and I'm able to make this portion larger, then I have a better interpretation of the map. I don't feel like anything's being hidden. I'm the reader, and I'm joining with you instead of becoming more more frustrated as, well, what's all this other stuff? Okay, so please keep that in mind. If you need to, throw it into a Word document, crop it down, resave it, or put it into PowerPoint and save it as a picture. However you want to manipulate it, go for it. But just keep that in mind. Another way around that, and this, I've been accused of cheating for this, not academic cheating, but just kind of social cheating. But this works just fine too, is if I grab a snipping tool and I just say, oh, I want a new one, and I'm just going to grab this piece right here and take a screenshot. I can save that too. So there's more than one way to do it. It just kind of depends on your situation and what's easiest for you. But consider whatever options you have available. There's no, if you don't use the formal way, myself, I'm not going to be upset, or there's no detractor for it grade-wise or assessment-wise. And really, you know, if you're conveying that point, that's great. I would rather lose all of the waste area and focus on what's important than focus on whether or not you exported it formally or grabbed a screenshot. But again, it's going to be an organizational preference when in the professional world, but for our purposes, either is acceptable. Okay, the next part is how do we share it with other ArcGIS Pro users? You can share things online if you wish. Story maps are a real function, but for us and submittal purposes, we're going to share our project. So again, on the Share tab, we're going to select Project, and we're going to save the package to file. You must select that in order to email it or upload it to Moodle. It just creates a number of problems if not. So if you kind of find yourself stuck, go back through the process, make sure you've checked that. The next part is where are you going to send it, right? So I have it in, right now, ArcGIS Lecture 5 exercise. Well, this is not quite the place I wanted to do it. I wanted to put it into Documents, GIS Location Analytics. This is where I want it. So make sure that you can find it afterwards, you know where it's going, and we'll give it a name. Right, so that name, we'll just call it Lecture 5, and we'll call it Exercise Project Package. So if you were submitting this, it would be a good idea to put your name in there so that just in case something got a little weird, and then just hit save. Right, so now it's going to say this is our location. Give it a summary. Demographics, or let's say distribution of males in 2015. And our tag, let's say GIS 691 location analytics. Share outside of the organization, just to make sure there's no barrier to sharing it with through Moodle. There's no special admin rights assigned to it. And let's check it. This Analyze button can save you a ton of time, especially the frustration of why something doesn't work. I always encourage students as well as my colleagues at work to use that. And then we'll go ahead and package it. Absolutely, we want to save it. And we're going to give it a chance to do its thing. This might take a little while, so be patient. All right, so I'm going to fast forward to it is now complete. And I can look in my file that I have all of my working material with, and I see the third one down is Lecture 5 Exercise Project Package, exactly what we saved. And it's something that I can move around. Now, just as a point of advice, be aware that sometimes email doesn't like these types of projects or these types of files because it sees them as something that gets expanded. If you ever tried to email an Access database, it doesn't like that either. So you may want to get in the habit of right-clicking or selecting and creating a zip folder. So we're going to right-click, send to compressed zip folder. And if you have a different way of doing that, that's fine. But this is one of the ways to kind of get around that, um, uh, the software filtering it out and saying, hey, wait a minute, we're not comfortable with this. This is usually a good way to get around it, especially if you're going to upload it to Moodle. So you're going to upload either the zip folder with or the zip file with the package in it, or just the package directly. Make sure that you put your name in it for just in case something gets a little lost in translation. That way it'll always be there. And then also you're going to upload your written narrative, right, discussing what your findings were, etc. So for your midterm, you're going to end up with this folder or this package, as well as your written document. So be aware of that.